Hello everyone, welcome to back my channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before starting the video, please go ahead and hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Roman Reigns has now broken a major promise he made. This may have huge consequences for the star. When Reigns was absent on screen after losing to Cody Rhodes, Paul Heyman revealed to Solo Sikoa that the tribal chief had made him a promise. He said that he had requested Reigns that he would never lay hands on CM Punk. He also said this was a request that the tribal chief had always honored after making the promise to the Wiseman. While this did not work with Solo Sikoa, it appeared that Reigns would keep the promise, especially after CM Punk filled in and helped Reigns during the Bloodline War Games. However, Punk was responsible for eliminating him at the Royal Rumble. Reigns returned during his Madison Square Garden steel cage match against Rollins and broke his promise to Paul Heyman. He attacked Punk and destroyed him when the latter was being comforted by Heyman. Now, Punk has said that Heyman handed Roman Reigns to him on a silver platter. While it's not confirmed yet, Reigns breaking his promise of attacking Punk might be the final straw for Heyman, and he may turn his back on the tribal chief. Roman Reigns is currently set to sign a contract to seal his fate for the WrestleMania 41 event. He is expected to face Seth Rollins and CM Punk in a match that will see the star clash with two of his biggest rivals. Although it's the first WrestleMania that Reigns has been in, and he hasn't defended a WWE title in a while, the match is still set to be a major one for him. Roman Reigns, the undisputed WWE Universal Champion, had risen to the pinnacle of the wrestling world, commanding respect and admiration from fans and competitors alike. His journey to this point had been an extraordinary one, defined by his fierce commitment to honor and family, traits that had long been associated with his character both in the ring and in real life. However, beneath the surface of his dominant reign, there were cracks forming, ones that threatened to shatter everything he had built. It all started with a promise. The promise. Months before he won the Universal Championship, Roman Reigns made a solemn vow. It wasn't just a promise to his family, his fans, or his tribal heritage. It was a vow to himself. Roman promised that he would remain true to the values that had shaped him throughout his life. He had promised that no matter how much power or fame he attained, he would never lose sight of his roots. His promise was that he would never abandon the people who had always supported him, whether they were in the audience, his closest friends, or his cousins in the NOI family. The promise was made during a time when Roman was experiencing his most significant internal conflict. Despite his undeniable success in the WWE, he often felt disconnected from the people he loved most. The pressures of fame, the weight of his responsibilities, and the grind of being at the top had created a distance between him and his family. But when Roman returned to WWE in 2020 after his battle with leukemia, he made a vow to never take those relationships for granted again. He wanted to be present for the people who had stood by him through the darkest times of his life. But things had changed. The evolution of the tribal chief. By the time Roman Reigns became the tribal chief, he had fully embraced his role as the dominant force in WWE. His persona was a mix of pride, arrogance, and raw power, all wrapped up in the symbolism of being the head of the table. Roman was no longer the smiling, heroic figure he once was. He was a commanding, ruthless champion who took what he wanted and demanded respect. Roman's transformation was dramatic, and it wasn't just about the title he held. It was about his identity, his willingness to make sacrifices in order to maintain control over his destiny. As the tribal chief, Roman began to alienate friends, colleagues, and even family members. His reign was marked by his treatment of his cousins, the Usos, who he had manipulated into doing his bidding, all in the name of family honor. Roman's power and influence over them only grew stronger with time, and with that influence came an increasing sense of entitlement. The promises he had made in the past now seemed distant and irrelevant. He was no longer the man who needed validation from others. Instead, Roman's actions began to speak louder than any words he had spoken in the past. His championship reign had taken on a different meaning. It was not just about maintaining his dominance in the ring. It was about asserting his control over everything and everyone in his orbit. The breaking point. The breaking point came one night on SmackDown. Roman was set to defend his Universal Championship against a new challenger, a hungry, ambitious superstar who had been climbing through the ranks of WWE, determined to make a name for himself. This challenger, however, had a unique connection to Roman's past. He was the son of a former wrestler and a close family friend of the NOI family. Roman knew this man well, and once upon a time they had shared a bond that went beyond business. Roman's promise to his family had always been about loyalty and respect. But as the weeks leading up to the match progressed, Roman's desire to maintain his power began to cloud his judgment. He started to question whether his promise to his family had been a mistake. Was it worth sacrificing everything for the sake of his title? The memories of his past, the promises he had made, and the people he had sworn to protect seemed to lose their importance as the weight of the Universal Championship bore down on him. On the night of the match, everything came to a head. Roman, determined to maintain his dominance, took things too far. In the heat of the moment, he betrayed the trust of his family. He saw an opportunity to solidify his place as the tribal chief by manipulating the situation, convincing his cousins, the Usos, to interfere in the match, ensuring his victory at all costs. But Roman's actions went beyond simple manipulation. They were a direct violation of the promise he had made to always put family first. The crowd was stunned into silence as Roman ruthlessly dominated his challenger, even though he didn't need to. The Usos, despite their initial hesitations, followed Roman's command. They interfered in the match, but it wasn't just the physical toll that shocked everyone. It was the way Roman treated his family afterward. Roman didn't show gratitude. He didn't acknowledge the sacrifice that his cousins had made for him. Instead, he stood in the ring holding his title aloft, completely indifferent to the loyalty that had been demonstrated to him. For the first time in months, Roman seemed truly alone. His family was no longer his support system. They were tools in his quest for power. The fallout from that night was swift and unforgiving. The fans who had once cheered Roman for his courage and honor began to turn against him. They recognized that the man who had made promises to his family and his fans was no longer the same. Roman's title reign was no longer a symbol of triumph. It had become a symbol of his selfishness and his abandonment of the very values that had made him a hero in the eyes of so many. His cousins, the Usos, became disillusioned with their loyalty to Roman. They questioned whether they had made the right choice in following him. And the family, once united under Roman's leadership, found themselves fractured. Tensions ran high, and cracks began to show in what had been the foundation of Roman's empire. It wasn't just the fans who turned on Roman. His family, particularly his father and his uncles, began to speak out against his behavior. They reminded him of the promise he had made to the NOI legacy: to lead with honor, to protect the family, and to never forsake the values that had been passed down through generations. Roman's actions were not only a betrayal of his promise to his fans, but to the very blood that had made him who he was. Roman found himself facing an internal battle. For the first time since his return to WWE, he felt lost. He had achieved everything he had set out to do, but at what cost? The emptiness he had felt before returning to WWE in 2020 had returned with a vengeance. His relationships were fractured, and his once solid grip on the WWE Universe was slipping. The consequences. Roman's betrayal didn't just affect his personal relationships, it impacted his career. The wrestling world, always quick to judge, turned its back on him. His title defenses became less about his prowess in the ring and more about his manipulation of the people around him. His dominance was no longer admired, it was feared. The WWE Universe, which had once looked to him as a symbol of strength and honor, now saw him as a tyrant. Roman's persona as the tribal chief was no longer invincible. It was broken, much like the promise he had made so many months ago. In the coming weeks, Roman Reigns would face the consequences of his actions. His relationships with his family, particularly with the Usos, would be tested. He would have to confront the fact that his thirst for power had destroyed everything he once held dear. But the road to redemption would not be easy. Roman would have to confront the reality of what he had become and whether he could ever repair the damage he had done. The future of the Universal Championship was uncertain, as new challengers emerged to claim what Roman had once held so tightly. And for the first time in years, Roman Reigns found himself questioning everything that had brought him to the top. Could he reclaim the respect of his family? Could he rebuild the trust of the WWE Universe? Only time would tell. But one thing was certain: Roman Reigns had broken his major promise, and now he would have to face the consequences of his actions. The story of the tribal chief was far from over, but it had taken a dark turn. Thanks for watching this video, and please subscribe our WWE official YouTube channel for more update news.